The hall was dark and cold, filled with the heavy smell of sweat and smoke. Shadows moved under the weak glow of alien lamps. Hundreds of strange beings filled the seats, their eyes shining with greed and hunger. At the center of the hall stood a stage made of steel, and on that stage a cage. Inside the cage was a young alien woman. Her skin glowed faintly like silver under the light. Her eyes showed fear, but they also carried a hidden fire. She held the bars tightly, as if holding them was the only thing keeping her standing. The crowd cheered loudly, their voices mixing into a storm of cruel laughter. A tall auctioneer, his body covered in scales, raised his voice. "Tonight we offer something rare, a companion. For your nights strong and young, she will serve as your bed partner." His words echoed, and the crowd roared with excitement. Coins, jewels, and credits were raised high. Everyone wanted to own her, not because they cared, but because they saw her as a prize. The alien woman pressed her back against the cage. Her chest shook with every breath. She wanted to cry, but she refused to show weakness. She whispered to herself, "Not like this. Not tonight." Yet deep inside, she feared there was no escape. Suddenly, in the far corner of the hall, a figure walked in. The crowd did not notice at first because he was quiet. He wore simple, dark clothes, and his face was half hidden by a hood. He moved with calm steps, but there was something different about him. He was human. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and most aliens did not think much of them. Many believed they were weak, small creatures unworthy of fear. Yet this man's presence carried weight. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the stage. His jaw tightened as he saw the young woman trapped. The auctioneer banged his staff against the floor. "Let the bidding begin." Voices rose, numbers were shouted, hands lifted with greed. The price climbed higher and higher. The alien woman closed her eyes, each shout cutting into her spirit like a knife. But then, something unexpected happened. A new voice, calm yet firm, cut through the noise. "Enough," the voice said. The hall went silent for a moment. All eyes turned to see who had spoken. It was the human. He had stepped forward, his hood falling back to reveal his face. His expression was cold, his eyes fixed on the auctioneer. He did not raise any coins or credits. He simply stood tall and repeated, "Enough." The auctioneer laughed. "And what do you offer, little human? Do you think you can stand against us with empty hands?" The crowd laughed too, their cruel voices filling the air again. The human did not smile. He reached into his coat and slowly pulled out a small emblem. It was a mark, one that many in the galaxy recognized. The mark of a soldier, a survivor of wars most had forgotten. The laughter stopped, and the hall grew tense. The alien woman opened her eyes, her gaze locked on the human. She could not understand why, but her heart skipped a beat. There was no greed in his face, only a strange kind of strength. The auctioneer tried to recover. "This is no place for your games, human. If you want her, pay like the others." His voice shook slightly now. The human stepped closer to the stage. His voice was steady, and it carried across the hall. "She will not be sold. Not tonight. Not ever. I am ending this." A hush fell over the room. The crowd did not move. Some whispered in fear, others in anger, but no one dared to shout. The alien woman's hands loosened from the bars. Hope, fragile but alive, flickered in her eyes. The auctioneer's face twisted in rage. He snapped his fingers, and several guards, large and armed, stepped forward. Their weapons gleamed in the dim light. They circled the human, ready to crush him. The human did not back away. He stood tall, his hand slowly moving toward the weapon hidden under his coat. His eyes never left the woman's, as if silently promising her something. And in that moment, time seemed to freeze. The fate of the young alien woman hung in the balance. The crowd leaned forward, waiting to see what would happen next. The human finally spoke once more, his voice like steel. "She is free, and anyone who tries to stop me will answer for it." The alien woman's lips parted in shock. Her knees grew weak and she nearly fell. For the first time in her life, someone was standing for her. not as a master, not as a buyer, but as a protector. The hall was silent. Only the sound of the guards' weapons buzzing filled the air. The crowd held its breath, watching, not daring to blink. The storm was about to begin. The guards moved in, their heavy boots striking the steel floor with loud echoes. The crowd cheered again, their fear turning back into excitement. They wanted blood now. They wanted to see the human broken. The alien woman's heart pounded inside the cage. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the cold bars. She had seen many buyers before, cruel faces with empty eyes, but this human was different. He had not raised money. He had not laughed. He had simply said she was free. She wanted to believe him, but she feared what would happen next. One guard, bigger than the rest, stepped forward. His skin was thick like armor, and he carried a weapon that glowed with red light. He sneered down at the human. "Walk away, little creature, you have no place here." The human did not move. His eyes locked on the woman for a brief moment, and then shifted back to the guard. Slowly, he pulled his weapon from under his coat. It was not big or shiny, just a simple old blaster, but the way he held it showed experience, calm, and steady hands. The guard laughed. "You think that toy will save you?" He swung his massive arm to strike. The human moved faster than anyone expected. In a flash, he ducked under the swing and fired. The shot hit the guard's leg, sparks flew, and the giant stumbled with a roar of pain. The crowd gasped. Silence, falling again. Before the others could react, the human rolled to the side, his movements sharp and precise. Another guard rushed him, swinging a heavy blade. The human blocked with his arm, sparks flying, then twisted and slammed his elbow into the alien's jaw. The guard collapsed, groaning. The hall erupted in chaos. Some shouted in anger, others screamed in fear, but no one stepped in. The human was no ordinary man. He fought with the focus of someone who had seen countless battles. Every move was clean, every strike had purpose. Inside the cage, the woman's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Humans were supposed to be weak. At least that was what everyone always said. Yet this one fought with a fire that made even the strongest guards fall back. 2 more guards circled him now, their weapons ready. The human stepped back slowly, his blaster low but steady. He did not waste words, he only acted. And when the guards rushed, he shot once, twice. Both collapsed before they even touched him. The auctioneer shouted, "Stop him! Kill the human!" His voice cracked with desperation, but no one in the crowd moved. They were stunned. They had come to see a woman sold, but now they were witnessing something far greater. A man defying an entire market alone. The last guard, shaking with fear, raised his weapon. His hands trembled so badly that he could hardly aim. The human's voice finally broke the silence, calm but commanding. "Put it down." The guard hesitated, then dropped the weapon and backed away. The auctioneer snarled and turned toward the cage. He grabbed the alien woman by her arm through the bars, pulling her harshly. "She stays. She is mine to sell," he roared. The human's eyes turned cold. He raised his blaster and fired. The shot hit the lock of the cage, and the bars burst open with a shower of sparks. The alien woman stumbled out, gasping for air. She looked at the human, her chest rising and falling quickly. For a moment, their eyes locked. She saw something in him she had never seen before. Choice, freedom, protection, she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why? Why are you doing this?" The human lowered his blaster slightly. His voice was quiet, but it carried strength. "Because no one has the right to own you." Her throat tightened. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. She had promised herself never to cry before her enemies. But this was different. This man was not her enemy. The auctioneer screamed in rage. His scaled body shook as he pointed at the human. "You will die for this, both of you." The crowd, however, did not move. Some looked away, ashamed, while others stared at the human with a strange kind of respect. A single human had stood against an entire system. The human reached out his hand to the woman. For a heartbeat. She froze, afraid it might be another trick. But then, slowly, She placed her hand in his. His grip was strong, steady, and warm. It was the first time in years she had felt safe. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was firm, like a shield in itself. She nodded, her lips trembling, and stayed close. The auctioneer finally lost his control. He shouted for reinforcements, his voice echoing into hidden tunnels. From the shadows came more figures, not guards this time, but hunters, mercenaries. With cruel eyes and sharp weapons, the human tightened his grip on the woman's hand and whispered, "Run when I say, don't look back." Her heart pounded, her breath quick and sharp. She wanted to argue, but something inside told her to trust him. The mercenaries spread out, blocking every exit. The hall filled with their presence, heavy and dangerous. The human lifted his blaster again, his eyes calm but ready. The alien woman's voice broke softly. "You can't fight them all." The human glanced at her just for a second. His lips curved into the faintest smile. "Watch me." The crowd froze once again, holding their breath as the human stood tall against an army, protecting someone who was never meant to be saved. And in that moment, time seemed to freeze. The fate of the young alien woman hung in the balance. The crowd leaned forward, waiting to see what would happen next. The human finally spoke once more, his voice like steel. "She is free, and anyone who tries to stop me will answer for it." The alien woman's lips parted in shock. Her knees grew weak and she nearly fell. For the first time in her life, someone was standing for her, not as a master, not as a buyer, but as a protector. The hall was silent. Only the sound of the guards' weapons buzzing filled the air. The crowd held its breath, watching, not daring to blink. The storm was about to begin. The guards moved in, their heavy boots striking the steel floor with loud echoes. The crowd cheered again, their fear turning back into excitement. They wanted blood now. They wanted to see the human broken. The alien woman's heart pounded inside the cage. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the cold bars. She had seen many buyers before, cruel faces with empty eyes, but this human was different. He had not raised money. He had not laughed. He had simply said she was free. She wanted to believe him, but she feared what would happen next. One guard, bigger than the rest, stepped forward. His skin was thick like armor, and he carried a weapon that glowed with red light. He sneered down at the human. "Walk away, little creature, you have no place here." The human did not move. His eyes locked on the woman for a brief moment, and then shifted back to the guard. Slowly, he pulled his weapon from under his coat. It was not big or shiny, just a simple old blaster. But the way he held it showed experience, calm, and steady hands. The guard laughed. "You think that toy will save you?" He swung his massive arm to strike. The human moved faster than anyone expected. In a flash, he ducked under the swing and fired. The shot hit the guard's leg, sparks flew, and the giant stumbled with a roar of pain. The crowd gasped. Silence, falling again. Before the others could react, the human rolled to the side, his movements sharp and precise. Another guard rushed him, swinging a heavy blade. The human blocked with his arm, sparks flying, then twisted and slammed his elbow into the alien's jaw. The guard collapsed, groaning. The hall erupted in chaos. Some shouted in anger, others screamed in fear, but no one stepped in. The human was no ordinary man. He fought with the focus of someone who had seen countless battles. Every move was clean. Every strike had purpose. Inside the cage, the woman's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Humans were supposed to be weak, at least that was what everyone always said. Yet this one fought with a fire that made even the strongest guards fall back. 2 more guards circled him now, their weapons. "Ready?" The human stepped back slowly, his blaster low but steady. He did not waste words, he only acted. And when the guards rushed, he shot once, twice. Both collapsed before they even touched him. The auctioneer shouted, "Stop him! Kill the human!" His voice cracked with desperation, but no one in the crowd moved. They were stunned. They had come to see a woman sold, but now they were witnessing something far greater. A man defying an entire market alone. The last guard, shaking with fear, raised his weapon. His hands trembled so badly that he could hardly aim. The human's voice finally broke the silence, calm but commanding. "Put it down." The guard hesitated, then dropped the weapon and backed away. The auctioneer snarled and turned toward the cage. He grabbed the alien woman by her arm through the bars, pulling her harshly. "She stays. She is mine to sell," he roared. The human's eyes turned cold. He raised his blaster and fired. The shot hit the lock of the cage, and the bars burst open with a shower of sparks. The alien woman stumbled out, gasping for air. She looked at the human, her chest rising and falling quickly. For a moment, their eyes locked. She saw something in him she had never seen before. Choice, freedom, protection. She whispered, her voice shaking. "Why? Why are you doing this?" The human lowered his blaster slightly. His voice was quiet, but it carried strength. "Because no one has the right to own you." Her throat tightened. Tears threatened to fall. But she held them back. She had promised herself never to cry before her enemies. But this was different. This man was not her enemy. The auctioneer screamed in rage. His scaled body shook as he pointed at the human. "You will die for this. Both of you." The crowd, however, did not move. Some looked away, ashamed, while others stared at the human with a strange kind of respect. A single human had stood against an entire system. The human reached out his hand to the woman. For a heartbeat. She froze, afraid it might be another trick. But then slowly, she placed her hand in his. His grip was strong, steady, and warm. It was the first time in years she had felt safe. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was firm, like a shield in itself. She nodded, her lips trembling, and stayed close. The auctioneer finally lost his control. He shouted for reinforcements, his voice echoing into hidden tunnels. From the shadows came more figures, not guards this time, but hunters. Mercenaries, with cruel eyes and sharp weapons. The human tightened his grip on the woman's hand and whispered, "Run when I say don't look back." Her heart pounded, her breath quick and sharp. She wanted to argue, but something inside told her to trust. Him? The mercenaries spread out, blocking every exit. The hall filled with their presence, heavy and dangerous. The human lifted his blaster again, his eyes calm but ready. The alien woman's voice broke softly. "You can't fight them all." The human glanced at her just for a second. His lips curved into the faintest smile. "Watch me." The crowd froze once again, holding their breath as the human stood tall against an army, protecting someone who was never meant to be saved, and in that moment she realized the truth. This stranger was not just a man, he was her savior. The storm had only begun. The mercenaries closed in, their weapons glowing in the dim hall. The crowd pulled back, no longer laughing, no longer cheering. Instead, they whispered in fear, unsure of what was about to unfold. The human stood firm, his blaster raised. The alien woman pressed close behind him. The auctioneer pointed at them with rage, his scaled hand shaking. "Take them both, alive if you can, dead if you must." His voice echoed, but even he could not hide the tremble in his tone. The mercenaries moved fast, but the human moved faster. A shot fired, sharp and precise, striking the nearest attacker in the shoulder. He spun, grabbed the woman's hand, and pulled her toward the side of the hall. "Now, run!" he commanded. The alien woman stumbled but obeyed. Her legs were weak, but her will was strong. She clung to his hand as they darted between the shadows. The crowd parted, some too afraid to stop them, others too stunned to move. Blaster fire burned through the air, sparks showering as shots hit steel walls. The human shielded her with his body, his movements sharp and practiced. Every step was measured, every glance quick. He knew exactly what he was doing. They burst through a side door, the heavy metal slamming shut behind them. The hallway beyond was narrow, lined with pipes that hissed steam. The woman gasped for breath, her heart racing. "They will follow us," she whispered. "They already are," the human replied calmly. His voice was steady, like a man who had run from death many times before. He scanned the hall quickly, then dragged her down. A flight of stairs behind them, boots thundered, shouts filled the air. The mercenaries were hunting them. Their steps grew closer. The woman's fear grew with each second. She had been a prisoner for so long, always trapped, always cornered. Running was new, freedom was new, and yet it felt fragile, like it could be stolen at any moment. They turned sharply, entering a larger chamber filled with crates and broken machinery. The human pushed her behind one crate, then crouched beside her. He checked his blaster. Its power was low, only a few shots left. Her eyes widened. We cannot win. They are too many. He looked at her, his gaze sharp but calm. We don't need to win, we just need to escape. She swallowed hard, her chest tight. But why? Why risk yourself for me? For a moment his expression softened. Because someone once saved me, when no one else would. I won't let them take you. His words were simple, but they carried a weight she could not explain. The sound of footsteps grew louder. The human stood quickly and fired again. His shot struck the lights above, shattering them into sparks and plunging the room into darkness. The mercenaries cursed, stumbling in the dark. The human grabbed the woman's hand once more. Stay close, he whispered and pulled her into the shadows. Her heart hammered in her chest, but she followed, trusting him. His grip was strong, guiding her through the maze of crates. She could hear the hunters behind them, their voices sharp and angry. At the far side of the chamber, a small hatch glowed faintly. The human spotted it. He kicked the lock, forcing it open, and motioned for her to crawl inside. She hesitated, looking back at the hunters. What about you? I'm right behind you, he said firmly. His tone left no room for argument. She crawled into the narrow tunnel, her knees scraping against the metal floor. The space was tight, dark, but ahead she could see a faint light. She pushed forward, her breath sharp. Behind her she heard blaster fire again, the human's shots quick and sharp. Then she felt him enter the tunnel after her, pulling the hatch closed. They crawled through the darkness for what felt like forever. The air was hot and heavy, but the light ahead grew brighter. Finally, they reached the end, and the woman pushed herself out, gasping as cool air hit her face. They were outside now, standing in the shadows of the slave market building. The night sky stretched above them, filled with stars. The woman stumbled to her feet, her eyes wide with wonder. For the first time in years, she was outside without chains. The human climbed out after her, his clothes dusty, his breathing steady. He scanned the area quickly. We need transport, he said. His voice remained calm, though his eyes were sharp. She looked at him, confusion and hope mixing in her chest. You're not leaving me? He shook his head. Not while they still hunt you. Her throat tightened and she felt her eyes burn with tears. She quickly turned away, not wanting him to see. Shouts echoed from behind them, guards spilling into the streets. The escape had not gone unnoticed. The human grabbed her hand again, pulling her into the dark alleys. His movements were quick, his senses sharp. They ran through the winding streets, every corner bringing danger, every shadow hiding enemies. Finally, they reached a wide platform, and there, hidden beneath tarps and scrap, was a small spaceship, worn but sturdy. The human rushed forward. Tearing away the cover, he powered it up, lights flickering as the engines groaned to life. The woman froze, staring at the ship. We are leaving, he nodded, motioning her inside. Unless you'd rather stay. For a second, she could not move. Her life had always been cages, walls, and fear. The idea of flying away, of being free, felt impossible. Yet here it was, real, waiting for her. Climbed inside, her hand shaking. The human followed, sealing the hatch. He jumped into the pilot's seat, his fingers flying over the controls. The ship roared louder, lifting from the ground. Behind them, mercenaries poured onto the platform. Firing wildly, shots struck the ship, sparks flying. The woman gasped and clung to the seat, fear rushing back. The human's jaw tightened, his hands steady on the controls. Hold on, he said. Then, with a sudden burst of power, the ship shot into the sky, leaving the hunters shouting below. The stars opened before them, endless and free. The woman stared out the window, her heart racing, her lips parted as she whispered, "I never thought I would see this again." The human glanced at her, his expression calm but his eyes soft. "You will see much more if you trust me." She looked at him, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe it might be true, but deep inside she knew the danger was not over. The hunters would not stop. The galaxy would not forget. The escape had only begun. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's window, glittering like diamonds on black silk. Inside, the small cabin hummed softly as the engine settled into a steady rhythm. For the first time in what felt like forever, the alien woman was no longer in chains. She sat on the edge of a narrow seat, her arms wrapped around herself, still unsure if this freedom was real. The human adjusted the controls, his movements. Steady and practiced, he glanced at her for a moment, his sharp eyes softening just slightly. "You can breathe now," he said quietly. "We're safe for the moment." She looked at him with wide eyes, her voice low and uncertain. "Safe? They will come after us, they never stop." He nodded slowly. "They will, but they'll have to catch us first." His tone was calm, almost casual, but there was steel behind it. The kind of confidence that came from experience. Her hands trembled. In her lap, she wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her heart. She studied his face, the lines carved by battles she could not imagine. His jaw was firm, his eyes carried shadows. He was no ordinary man. Finally, she whispered, "Why? Why would a human save me? You could have walked away." He leaned back in his chair, his gaze turning toward the stars. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then he spoke, his voice low. "Because I've seen what they do. I've seen people, sold, broken, forgotten, and once I was the one behind the bars." Her breath caught, she leaned forward slightly, unable to look away. You were enslaved?" He gave a small nod, not meeting her eyes. "Years ago, before I learned to fight, before I learned to run, they thought I was weak. But someone pulled me out, gave me a chance to live again. I promised myself I would do the same, if I ever had the chance." Her chest tightened. She felt the sting of tears, but she blinked them back. Her voice broke softly. "And now you have." He finally turned to face her. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she did not see. Just a stranger. She saw something more, something steady and unshaken. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated. Her name had always been a chain, a sound spoken by masters who never cared. But somehow, with him, it felt different. "Leora," she said at last, her voice almost a whisper. He repeated it, letting the name roll off his tongue. "Leora." It sounded softer, warmer when he said it. "I'm Kale." The moment felt small yet powerful. For years she had been property, a thing without a future. And now, for the first time, she was simply Leora. Kale stood and moved to a storage compartment, pulling out a small container. He handed it to her. "Food. You'll need it." Her hands shook as she opened it. The smell of warm bread filled the cabin, and her stomach twisted painfully. She had not eaten properly in days, maybe weeks. She bit into it quickly, tears filling her eyes. As the simple taste overwhelmed her, Kale sat back, watching her silently. He didn't rush her, didn't judge. He only made sure she ate. When she finished, she wiped her mouth, her cheeks flushed with shame. I'm sorry, I look like an animal." He shook his head, his voice steady. "You look like someone who survived. There's nothing to be sorry for." Her throat tightened. She lowered her gaze, her hands curling into fists. "I thought no one would ever see me as anything but property." Kale leaned forward slightly, his eyes hard. "Listen to me, Leora. You are not property. You never were. And as long as I draw breath, no one will ever treat you that way again." The words struck her like fire. For years, she had lived in silence, in hopelessness. Now this human was giving her something she had not dared to feel, hope. But hope was dangerous. Hope could be ripped away. And still her heart clung to it. The ship jolted suddenly, alarms blaring. Kale jumped to the controls. "They found us," he muttered. The scanners lit up with red signals. Pursuers, fast and armed. Leora gripped the seat tightly, her fear rushing back. They won't stop. They'll kill us both. Cale's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Then we'll make it difficult for them. He steered the ship sharply, stars streaking past as they dove into a dense asteroid field. The ship shook violently as rocks scraped against its sides. Lasers fired from behind, explosions lighting the blackness. Cale's hands moved quickly, guiding them through the maze of stone and shadow. Leora clung to the seat, her heart racing. She wanted to scream, but then she looked at him. He was calm, focused, unshaken. And somehow, that steadiness reached her. She forced herself to breathe, to trust. One of the pursuing ships crashed into an asteroid, flames bursting across the void. The others pressed on, faster now. Cale cursed under his breath. They'll call more hunters, we need to disappear. He flicked a switch and the ship dove into the shadow of a massive asteroid, hiding in its dark crater. Engines powered down, silence filled the cabin. The woman's breath was heavy, her body trembling. Kyle turned to her, his voice steady. We'll wait here until they pass. She nodded slowly, but her eyes filled with doubt. And after that? Where will we go? What life is left for me? Cale looked at her, his gaze steady. Any life you want, you're free now, Leora. You decide what comes next. Her lips parted, her voice breaking. I don't even know what freedom means anymore. Cale leaned back, his eyes softening. Then we'll find out together. The words settled deep inside her, warming a place she thought had died long ago. She didn't know what future awaited, but for the first time she wanted to see it. Outside, the hunters searched the stars, but inside the small ship, a bond had begun to grow. Fragile, uncertain, yet stronger than the chains that once bound her. And though danger still hunted them, Leora's heart whispered something she had not felt. In years, maybe, just maybe, she was no longer alone. The ship drifted through the endless dark, stars glittering like cold fire around it. Inside, the hum of engines was steady, but the cabin was silent. The human, Cale, sat at the controls, his eyes fixed on the black horizon. Beside him, the alien woman, Leora, sat curled in the co-pilot's seat. Her body was free of chains now, but her mind still carried their weight. Her voice finally broke, the silence low and uncertain. They will follow, they always follow, no one escapes. Kyle didn't turn his head. His hands moved calmly over the controls. Let them follow, he said. I've made a life of being chased. And I'm still here? Leora studied him. The calm in his voice unsettled her. It was not arrogance, it was something harder, born of scars she could not yet see. She wanted to ask more, but the words caught in her throat. Minutes passed, the silence heavy. Then Kyle rose from his seat and moved to the storage compartment. He pulled out a small silver canister, twisting the top open. He handed it to her. Water, drink. Her hands shook as she accepted it. The cool liquid touched her lips and she nearly wept. It had been so long since she had tasted something clean. She drank deeply, then stopped suddenly, ashamed. She placed the canister back in his hand. I shouldn't take so much. Cale frowned. You take what you need, that's how survival works. His words were simple, but they hit her like a blow. She looked away, staring out the window at the stars. Her voice trembled. Survival. That's all I've done for years. He sat across from her, leaning forward. Then maybe it's time you learn something else. Her eyes lifted to meet his, cautious. Like what? Living, he said. His voice was quiet but firm. Not just surviving, living. The words shook her. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself, afraid to believe in something she could lose. I don't know how, she whispered. Cale didn't push her. He only said, then you'll learn. And leaned back, closing his eyes. For him, that was enough. Hours passed. The ship floated in the silence of space. Leora could not sleep. Her body ached, but her mind was too loud. Memories of cages, of cruel hands, of the auctioneer's laughter. They wrapped around her like chains she could not break. Finally, she spoke into the quiet. My name was never mine. They used it like a leash. She paused, then added softly, "It's Leora. That's what my mother called me, before they took her." Cale opened his eyes, repeating the name slowly, as if anchoring it in the air. "Leora." He nodded once. "That's a good name, don't let anyone take it from you again." Her lips trembled. She wanted to thank him, but the words stuck. Instead, she asked, "And you? Who are you, human?" He smirked faintly. "Cale. That's all that matters." "Cale," she repeated, tasting the sound of it. Simple, strong. It felt safe. A sudden alarm cut the moment short. The console flashed red. Cale moved quickly, scanning the screen. "They've marked us hunters on our trail." Leora's stomach twisted. Fear returned sharp and cold. "We can't fight them, not all of them." Cale's jaw tightened. "Then we don't fight, we vanish." The ship jolted as he steered sharply. Stars blurred into streaks. They dove toward a nearby gas cloud, thick and swirling with colors of green and gold. It was beautiful, but dangerous. Navigation inside could tear a ship apart. Leora grabbed the arm of her chair. "You'll kill us." Cale's eyes were steady. "Or we'll live, trust me." Her heart pounded. Every part of her screamed to resist, but she forced herself to stay still, watching him. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. And slowly, she began to believe. The ship plunged into the cloud. Lightning cracked through the mist. Shadows of the hunters flickered on the scanners. They fired blindly, but the thick gas swallowed the shots. Cale guided the ship deeper. Weaving between invisible currents, Leora's breaths came quick, but she kept her eyes on him. He was calm, even as alarms screamed, his hands steady on the controls. His voice broke the tension, quiet but sharp. "Fear keeps you alive, but trust keeps you moving. Which one will you choose?" Her lips parted, but no words came, only a nod, shaky but real. Finally, the scanner lights dimmed. The hunters lost their trail. The ship drifted quietly inside the golden mist. Safe for now, Cale leaned back, exhaling slowly. "We'll hide, here until they pass." The cabin fell into silence again, but this silence was different. Not heavy, not cold. It was lighter, fragile, like the first breath after drowning. Leora looked at him, her voice soft. "I don't understand you, Cale. Humans are supposed to be weak, afraid, small, but you're none of those things." He opened one eye, smirking faintly. "Maybe they just told you the wrong stories." She almost smiled. The corners of her lips lifted slightly. It felt strange, foreign, but good. For the first time, she thought maybe she could believe in a tomorrow that wasn't cages and chains. Maybe she could believe in him. The bond had begun, fragile but alive, and though danger still hunted them, Leora no longer felt completely alone in the dark. The gas cloud wrapped around the ship like a golden mist. Lightning flashed in the distance, painting the cabin in brief bursts of light. Cale kept the controls steady, his jaw tight. Leora sat beside him, her fingers gripping the edge of the seat. For a while, the scanner showed nothing, just silence. Broken only by the hum of the engines, Leora allowed herself a slow breath, almost believing they had escaped. But then the console blared red. Cale's eyes narrowed. "They're back." 3 hunter ships appeared on the screen, sharp and fast. Their engines burned like fire as they cut through the gas. They had tracked them, relentless and merciless. Leora's chest tightened. "They won't stop until we're dead," she whispered. Her voice shook. Cale didn't look at her. His voice was calm. "Then we make them stop." The ship jolted as the first blast struck near their wing. Sparks showered inside, alarms screaming. Leora gasped, pressing herself against the seat. Cale gritted his teeth, steering sharply. "Strap in," he ordered. His tone left no space for argument. Leora fumbled with the straps, her hands trembling. Her heart pounded like a drum. She had lived through cages and cruelty, but this was different. This was war. The hunters closed in, firing again. The blasts lit up the mist around them. Cale's ship shook violently. He cursed under his breath, fingers flying across the controls. "They're faster," Leora said, panic rising in her chest. "Maybe," Cale muttered, "but speed means nothing if you don't know where to look." With a sudden twist, he dove the ship down into the thickest part of the cloud. The scanners flickered, confused by the static inside. The hunters followed, their shadows cutting through the fog. Cale's eyes stayed sharp, calculating. He guided the ship close to a massive asteroid hidden in the mist. The hunters fired, but Cale banked at the last second. Their blasts struck the rock instead, sending fire and fragments spinning. One hunter ship clipped the asteroid, exploding into flames. Leora gasped as the fire lit the cloud in gold. "You destroyed them." Cale shook his head. "One. 2 more." The others pressed closer, angrier now. Their shots tore through the mist, grazing the ship's side. Sparks erupted inside. Leora screamed as smoke filled the cabin. Cale coughed but kept his grip tight. "Don't lose focus," he said firmly. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. She looked at him, terrified but steadying herself. His calmness was unreal, almost impossible, yet it gave her strength. The hunters split apart, one diving below, the other climbing above. They were trying to trap Cale. He smirked faintly. Good strategy, but not good enough. With sudden precision, he cut the engines. The ship dropped sharply, spinning downward. Both hunters overshot, missing their trap. Kyle reignited the engines, the sudden thrust throwing them back into control. He swung behind the lower hunter, firing his blaster cannons. The shots ripped through its tail, sending it spinning into the gas until it vanished in a burst of fire. "One left," Cale muttered. Leora's chest tightened as the last hunter circled back. Its weapons glowed bright, ready to finish them. She grabbed Cale's arm, her voice trembling. "You can't fight them forever. They'll keep coming more and more." Cale's eyes flicked to her for a moment, steady and unshaken. "Then we stop running. Together." Her breath caught. The word together struck deep, stronger than the roar of engines. For the first time, he wasn't just saving her. He was asking her to stand beside him. Her fear burned into something else, something new. She unstrapped herself, stumbling toward the weapon console. Her hands shook as she pressed the controls. "Tell me what to do," she said, her voice breaking but firm. Cale's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Aim for the core, don't hesitate." The hunter charged, lasers firing. Cale dodged sharply, the ship shuddering under the blasts. Leora focused, her heart racing, her finger hovered over the trigger. The hunter loomed closer, its engines burning red now. Cale shouted. Leora pressed the trigger. The cannons roared, a burst of light shooting straight into the hunter's center. For a second, nothing happened. Then the ship exploded, fire tearing across the mist. The cabin shook with the force. Leora cried out, covering her face. Then silence fell, the explosion fading into the dark. Cale steadied the ship, breathing hard. "You did it." Leora stared at her hands, trembling. I killed them." Her voice shook with horror and disbelief. Cale turned toward her, his eyes sharp but not cold. "You saved us. Don't forget that. You're not just someone who survives anymore. You fight." Her chest rose and fell quickly. Her heart screamed with fear but also with something else. Pride. For the first time, she had not been helpless. For the first time, she had struck back. Cale adjusted the controls, setting the ship on a steady course. "They'll send more hunters. They always do," he muttered. Leora swallowed hard, her voice soft but stronger than before. "Then I'll fight with you." The words left her lips before she could stop them, but she meant them. Every part of her meant them. Cale looked at her for a long moment. His eyes softened. "Then maybe we stand a chance." The ship disappeared deeper into the golden mist. Two souls bound not by chains, but by choice. For the first time in her life, Leora wasn't just running. She was standing. She wasn't alone anymore. And though the galaxy still hunted them, something stronger had been born in the fire, a bond of trust, a bond of defiance, a bond that even death might not break. The ship tore through the golden mist, engines straining. Metal groaned under the pressure, smoke filled the cabin. Cale's hands moved across the controls, sharp and steady, but even his calm expression showed strain. Leora clung to the side rail, her heart racing. "The ship, it won't hold," she cried. Cale's jaw tightened. "We're not far from a planet. If we can land, we live." "If," she whispered. The scanners blared, warning lights flashing. A dark sphere appeared on the screen, a planet hidden within. The gas cloud covered in green forests and silver rivers, beautiful but dangerous. Kale slammed a switch. Hold tight. The ship dropped violently, the atmosphere tearing at its hull. Flames licked across the windows. Leora screamed, gripping the seat with all her strength. Her body shook as the ship spun. The crash was brutal. The ground rose fast. Trees split. Dirt and fire exploded. The ship skidded across the earth, breaking branches and rock until finally it slammed against a hill and stopped with a deafening crack. Silence except for the hiss of smoke. Leora gasped for air, her chest tight. Her body trembled, but she was alive. She turned quickly. "Kyle?" He groaned from the pilot's seat, blood running from his forehead. His hands still gripped the controls even as his body slumped. "Kyle!" she cried, rushing to him. She shook his shoulder, desperate. His eyes flickered open, unfocused but still burning with that same sharp fire. "I'm fine," he muttered, though his voice was weak. "No, you're not," she said firmly. Her hands trembled as she tore strips from her torn dress, pressing them against his wound. He flinched but didn't stop her. For the first time, she was the one protecting him. Kale's breath was uneven, but his lips curved faintly. "You learn fast." She blinked, tears filling her eyes. "Don't speak. Save your strength." The cabin creaked. The ship was broken, smoke rising from shattered panels. Outside, the forest swayed in the wind. But it wasn't peaceful. It was alive, too alive. Growls echoed in the distance, low and hungry. Leora stiffened, her heart pounding. "What is that?" Kale's eyes narrowed. "This planet isn't empty, we're not alone." Night fell quickly. The ship's lights flickered weakly. Shadows stretched across the broken hull. Leora sat beside Kale, her eyes wide. Her ears caught every sound. The crack of branches, the distant roar, the hiss of unseen creatures. Kale forced himself upright despite the pain. He loaded his blaster slowly, his hands shaking but steady. "We'll need to move soon," he said. "The wreck will draw them in." Leora bit her lip, fear crawling in her chest. "You're injured. You can't fight like this." His gaze turned to her, sharp and unyielding. "Then you'll have to." Her eyes widened. "Me? You wanted to stand with me," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Now is the time." Her throat tightened. Every part of her wanted to refuse, to hide. But she saw the blood on his temple, the exhaustion in his eyes. If she did nothing, they would both die. She took a slow breath, forcing her shaking hands to steady. "Tell me what to do." Kale nodded once. He guided her through the basics, how to hold the weapon, how to aim, how to listen for movement. His voice was calm, a steady anchor against the storm. Outside, the forest stirred, glowing eyes appeared between the trees. A low growl rumbled closer. Leora raised the blaster, her arms trembling. The shadows moved, branches cracked, a beast leapt from the dark, its body covered in scales, its jaws wide with sharp teeth. Her finger froze on the trigger. Fear swallowed her, her knees weakened. "Leora!" Kale's voice cut through the panic, sharp and commanding. "Now!" She screamed and fired. The shot struck the beast in the chest. It roared, thrashing wildly before collapsing. The smell of burnt scales filled the air. Leora fell back, gasping. Her body shook violently. She had never killed before, never fought, but now the proof was smoking in front of her. Kale's voice softened. "You did it." Tears ran down her cheeks. She shook her head. "I was so afraid." "And yet you pulled the trigger," Kale said. "That's courage, Leora. Courage isn't about being fearless, it's about standing when fear tries to break you." Her chest heaved, but his words sank deep. For the first time, she began to see herself differently, not just a victim, but someone who could fight back. More growls echoed in the distance, glowing eyes gathering in the dark. Leora wiped her tears. With trembling hands, she raised the blaster again, this time with less hesitation. "Then I'll keep standing," she whispered. Kale smirked faintly despite his pain. "That's the spirit." The beasts moved closer, shadows circling. The night filled with their snarls. Leora and Kale stood together, side by side, ready. The bond that had started in the stars was forged stronger in the fire of survival. She was no longer the girl in the cage, trembling in silence. She was something else now, and though the night would test them, though the galaxy still hunted them, Leora had found something she never thought she'd see, her hidden strength. The forest was alive with sound. Growls echoed through the night. Branches snapped under heavy steps and glowing eyes circled the wreck like embers in the dark. Smoke rose from the broken ship, its faint light painting Kyle and Leora in flickering shadows. Leora stood with the blaster in her hands, her body trembling, but her eyes sharper than before. Kale leaned against the ruined hull, his wound bandaged but still bleeding, even hurt. His presence was steady. "They're waiting," he said quietly. "Hunters outside, beasts in the trees, they want us tired before they strike." Her heart pounded. "Hunters?" Kale nodded, pointing toward the distant tree line. Shapes moved in the shadows, tall, armed figures, mercenaries with sharp eyes and cruel grins. They had followed the wreck, drawn by the promise of a bounty. Leora's breath caught. "They came for me." "No," Kale said firmly. "They came for us because they know together we're a threat." His words lit a fire in her chest. She gripped the blaster tighter, no longer feeling only fear. "Then we fight." Kale's lips curved into a faint smirk. "That's the spirit." The first strike came from the beasts. 3 leapt from the trees, snarling. Their jaws snapped as they rushed forward. Leora raised her weapon and fired. The first shot struck true, burning into a scaled chest. The beast collapsed with a screech. Kale took down the second with a precise blast, but the third slammed against the hull. Claws tearing through the metal, Leora screamed, spinning to fire again. The shot ripped through its neck, dropping it at her feet. Her body shook, but she didn't lower the weapon. Kale's voice reached her, calm and steady. "Good, don't stop moving." Before she could answer, the hunters fired. Red bolts lit the night, striking the wreck. Sparks showered, forcing Kale and Leora to duck. Kale gritted his teeth, pulling himself upright. His aim was slower, his injury slowing him down, but his shots were still precise. One hunter dropped, then another, but more pushed forward. Their boots thudded against the earth as they spread in a wide arc, trapping them. Leora's fear spiked. "There are too many." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then we make them afraid of us." The beasts attacked again, drawn by the chaos. Snarls mixed with shouts. Hunters cursed as the wild creatures lunged at them. For a moment, the battlefield turned into madness. Kale grabbed Leora's arm, pulling her behind the wreck. "Listen to me," he said sharply. "This is our chance. They're distracted. We hit hard and we finish it." She swallowed hard, her eyes wide. "But if we fail, we won't." Kale cut her off. His gaze locked on hers, fierce and steady. "I trust you. Do you trust me?" Her chest tightened. The answer came before she could think. "Yes, then fight with me," he said, pressing another blaster into her hand. They broke from cover, weapons blazing. Kale's shots cut through the hunters with ruthless precision. Even injured, he moved like a soldier born for war. Leora followed, her fear drowned by fire. Each pull of the trigger was easier now, her aim sharper. Her voice no longer trembled when she shouted. One hunter rushed her with a blade. She ducked under the swing and fired point blank. The blast threw him back into the dirt. She gasped, but didn't stop. Her hands shook, but she held firm. Kale fought beside her, every move protecting her flank, every word sharp and guiding. "Left, fire, down, now!" She obeyed. And together they cut through the line, but the auctioneer's voice suddenly rang out across the battlefield. Twisted with rage, he had followed them himself, his scaled body towering as he stepped from the shadows. His eyes burned with hatred. "You ruined my market, human. You stole my prize. Now I'll take her back in pieces." Leora froze, her stomach twisting. The memory of his hand dragging her in the cage flashed in her mind. Fear threatened to shatter her strength. Kale stepped forward, his blaster raised. "She doesn't belong to you." His voice was steel. "She never did." The auctioneer roared and charged. His claws slashed as he swung at Kale. Kale stumbled from the injury, barely blocking the strike. The blaster flew from his hand. "Kale!" Leora screamed. The auctioneer raised his claws again, ready to strike the final blow. But before he could, a blast roared, A shot slammed into his chest, throwing him back. Leora stood with the blaster smoking in her hands, her breath ragged, her eyes burning with fury. "I'm not your property," she shouted. Her voice shook the night. The auctioneer gasped, his scaled body falling to the ground lifeless. Silence followed. The hunters froze, their leader gone. The beasts scattered back into the forest. Cale forced himself upright, staring at her, his lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "You saved me." She lowered the weapon, her arms trembling. "We saved each other." Dawn broke slowly. The battlefield lay quiet. Smoke drifted through the trees. Cale leaned against the wreck, exhausted but alive. Leora sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the rising sun. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking of chains, or cages, or the auctioneer's voice. She was thinking of tomorrow. Cale turned his head toward her. "What will you do now, Leora?" Her voice was soft but steady. "Live," she said. "Not survive, not obey, just live." He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Then we'll live together." The forest wind carried their words away. Stars still shone faintly above the trees, vast and endless. The galaxy had tried to break them, but instead, it had forged something stronger. And though hunters would come again, though dangers would always follow, Cale and Leora had made their stand, not as master and slave, not as human and alien, but as two souls bound by choice, and the galaxy would never forget it.